The second they crossed your path, radiating that effortless charm they wield like a weapon, you saw the cracks beneath their polished act. While others scrambled to feed their insatiable hunger for attention, you remained unshaken, silent, steady, a mystery wrapped in an enigma. You didn't crumble or bend, you carved out space with a fierce serenity they'd never faced before. Their rehearsed moves, so effective on everyone else, fell flat against your stillness. Instead of falling into their game, you rewrote the rules, leaving them stunned and captivated by the one soul who refused to be a pawn. They thrive on chaos, on pulling strings and spinning webs of control, but with you, the script flipped. You broke free from the loop, and now they're the ones caught in a maze, chasing shadows of a connection they can't comprehend.
Your calm presence shattered their expectations. Your refusal to engage was a wound they couldn't heal. Without your reaction, their carefully crafted narratives collapsed, leaving them exposed and raw. They hunger for chaos, for conflict to validate their story, but you gave them nothing. No spark, no fuel, no justification. That silence is their kryptonite, forcing them to confront their own shadows alone. Beneath their composed facade, panic simmers. They scramble internally, desperate to decode why you won't play their game. No pleading, no anger, no desperation. Just steady indifference that dismantles their roles. Their minds twist in frustration, caught in the loop of unanswered provocations. They can't define you, can't label your strength, and that elusiveness unsettles them more than any confrontation ever could. You exist beyond their control, and it drives them wild with a restless obsession to understand what they never will. You erased their script and vanished from their stage, becoming a phantom in their thoughts, untouchable, undefined, and utterly indifferent. They aimed to rattle you, but all they stirred was your calm silence, and in that quiet, their control slipped through their fingers. Though you severed every tie, in their mind you're still tangled in their web, an illusion they nurture to soothe their craving for dominance and connection. They aren't just replaying memories, they're rewriting history, spinning tales of intimacy that never happened. Whispered promises, secret rendezvous, futures painted with false hope, all invented to fill the void your absence left. The silence you embrace terrifies them, so they drown it out with noise, fabricated stories, rehearsed lies, and desperate fantasies that blur truth and fiction. To friends, acquaintances, even strangers, they tell stories where you're still entwined, still theirs, still a ghost haunting their reality, waiting to be reclaimed. The reality is, you walked away, and they're desperate to hold on, not to you, but to the illusion of possession. This isn't about missing your presence, it's about clinging to the power you once gave them by simply existing in their orbit. Unable to touch you, they shift their war to the shadows, twisting your name, twisting your story, reshaping your image like clay in their hands. When they can't reach you, they'll settle for controlling the narrative around you, planting seeds of doubt and distortion. They count on silence, on people accepting their half-truths without question, on the fog of assumption drowning out clarity. It's a battle fought in whispers and rumors, where your reality is their weapon, and your absence only fuels their hunger to rewrite the truth. They aim to isolate you, sowing doubt and confusion among those closest to you. Their goal is to make your circle question your truth, to plant seeds of suspicion that make you seem unstable, unreliable. This isn't mere projection, it's a calculated invasion. They infiltrate your life through whispers and insinuations, hoping that if they can't steer your actions, they can at least poison the space you move through. But none of these stories hold any truth, not the fabricated closeness, not the fake apologies, not the illusions of a bond long broken. It's a frantic grasp at a connection that has already slipped away. With your energy withdrawn, they're left spinning fantasies to fill the void, crafting lies that reflect only their denial, not your reality. The reality is, they're stuck in a world you've already left, a place built on shadows and illusions to mask the void you created by walking away. They cling desperately to a story that lives only in their imagination, projecting a connection that's long since dissolved. They want the world to buy into their fantasy, to believe that what you had still breathes. But the truth is quieter, harsher. Your silence is the slow erosion of their constructed reality, a force they can't fight or ignore. With every moment you stay absent, their illusion weakens, and the gap between what they want and what is widens, leaving them stranded in a fading echo of a past that no longer holds you. You didn't simply leave, you dismantled the entire framework they depended on. For years, they've thrived by bending others to their will, scripting every interaction to fit their story. But with you, their grip slipped through empty air. You refused to comply, to play the role they demanded, or to feed their need for control. Instead, you stood firm, unwavering and sovereign in your own power. Your calm defiance was a force they couldn't break, and that reality cracked open a wound they never expected, one that left them exposed and unsettled, struggling to comprehend a strength they could neither tame nor contain. They label you distant, uncaring, even heartless, but that's just their reflection, not your truth. What they really mean is you refuse to crumble, refuse to nourish their twisted hunger for chaos masquerading as affection, and that refusal infuriates them. In moments they crafted for meltdown, you remained steady. In the storms they wanted you to scream through, you held your silence. Your mastery over your own emotions, your unshakable self-possession, it scorches them because it proves you were never theirs to control, not now, not ever. Your heightened perception, whether born from neurodivergence or fierce intuition, makes you a threat they never saw coming. You don't just glance at surface smiles, you feel the undercurrents, decode hidden agendas, and dismantle facades before they fully form. You aren't fooled by their smoke and mirrors because your mind isn't tangled in dreams. It's wired to recognize the blueprint beneath the chaos. From the very beginning, the pattern stood out in sharp relief. Manipulation disguised as affection, charm wielded like a weapon, and emotional turmoil engineered to keep you off balance. You saw it all, unmasked and undeniable. You didn't have to unravel the mystery. It was clear from the moment you arrived. Even more unsettling for them, you didn't just see their truth. You held up the mirror for all to witness. You weren't a prize to be won or a game to be played. You were a force of reckoning, a catalyst for awakening. Your very existence illuminated the darkness they cloaked in charm and deception, exposing every hidden fracture. For someone who thrives in shadows and smoke, that sudden spotlight was intolerable, a confrontation with a reality they desperately tried to deny. They sought submission, someone to bow without question. But what they found was a mirror reflecting their darkest truths, a fearless presence that refused to back down. They can't unsee the raw honesty you revealed beneath their carefully crafted mask. That mix of fascination and fear keeps pulling them in and pushing them away. You didn't just strip away their control, you handed it back in a way they never expected, unyielding, unapologetic, and utterly unmanageable. It's a power they both crave and dread, and it unsettles them to their core. You forced them to face the shadows they'd long tried to hide, and now they're trapped between the urge to punish you and the need to claim you, sometimes both at once. The reality is, they craved someone exactly like you, steadfast, unwavering, a force strong enough to shatter their illusions. But in standing firm, you became their enemy, not out of cruelty, but because your truth was relentless, impossible to bend or break. That unyielding authenticity unsettles them deeply, stirring a fierce mix of admiration and resentment that they can't quite reconcile. You never bent to fit their expectations. You remained unapologetically yourself. In that steadfastness, they glimpsed all the things they denied within themselves, the parts they tried desperately to hide. You stirred the wound they've been running from their entire life, and that's why your presence lingers like a ghost they can't shake. You weren't sent to be another chapter in their story of control or illusion. You were there to witness their real self, the raw, unvarnished truth beneath the masks and facades they present to the world. And that kind of clarity is a reckoning they'll carry with them forever. You never got caught up in the glitter or the noise. Instead, you held steady, watching beyond the surface to the vulnerable core beneath the performance, and that terrified them. For someone whose foundation is built on illusion, being truly seen is like a spiritual unraveling, a death of the false self. You came not to become part of their story as a victim or a lover, but as a witness, a mirror held up with clarity and purpose. Your role wasn't to get tangled in their chaos, but to reflect their truth back to them, unflinching and undeniable. You reflected their truth not to punish, but because it was your truth to share, a reflection born from clarity, not cruelty. In your gaze, they confronted the parts of themselves they'd spent years denying, the deceiver, the illusion weaver, the master of emotional strings. Facing that shadow ignited their fury, twisting your empathy into a mistaken need, your quiet watchfulness into desperate desire. But you were never a prize to be claimed or a victim to be swept away. You stood firm, rooted in your own strength, watching as they performed their endless dramas, untouched, unshaken, and unmistakably free.
The moment they understood you weren't grasping for connection, weren't waiting for their approval, weren't caught in their charade, panic gripped them like a vice. If you saw their true self and still walked away, what did that reveal about the story they told themselves? Your spirit refused to play along, and that kind of rebellion shattered their carefully crafted illusions. They're accustomed to scripting their role, the wounded victim, the tortured lover, but you refused to step into their theater. By breaking the pattern, you left them unraveling, lost without a script to control or a narrative to cling to. You caught the hidden moments, the quiet lies whispered when no one was watching. You saw every crack in the facade and refused to be part of the charade. Now they're desperate, twisting the narrative, casting you as the antagonist, the heartless one, the source of all the chaos. But no matter how they spin their tale or rewrite the script, your calm presence remains unshaken, a steady anchor of truth they can't erase or distort. Your silence speaks louder than their noise, exposing the reality they're trying so hard to bury. You weren't harsh. You were real. You didn't drag their secrets into the light. You let their own actions reveal who they truly were. You observed quietly, without jumping in to save or respond, and that steady presence was more than they could withstand. No one had ever held that kind of space for them before. No one met their gaze with unwavering calm, without fear, without the urge to escape or repair. You stayed grounded in the discomfort until the weight of truth crushed their defenses, and when it became too much to bear, you simply turned and left. You weren't harsh, you were real. You didn't drag their secrets into the light. You let their own actions reveal who they truly were. You observed quietly, without jumping in to save or respond, and that steady presence was more than they could withstand. No one had ever held that kind of space for them before. No one met their gaze with unwavering calm, without fear, without the urge to escape or repair. You stayed grounded in the discomfort until the weight of truth crushed their defenses, and when it became too much to bear, you simply turned and left. They carry the weight of your knowing like a shadow that never fades, haunted by the depth of your insight, by the way you saw every fracture and still refused to get entangled. You never faltered or gave them the leverage they craved. You remained steady, holding the power in your silence. And now, despite all their noise and denials, they can't escape the truth. You were the one who truly saw them in all their complexity and contradiction. That kind of vision leaves a mark that no amount of deception or denial can erase. They couldn't reach you head-on, so now they're weaving their way in through shadows, quiet whispers behind your back, secretive calls through the people you hold close. You might not see their footprints at your doorstep, but don't be fooled. They're still working to infiltrate your world. This isn't about healing or closure. It's a calculated campaign to twist the narrative around you, to manipulate the way others see you, to latch onto your energy by any means necessary. They reach out to your friends with carefully crafted sorrow, send messages to your family cloaked in false regret, slip into workplace chats pretending to care. But each word is a weapon, chosen to sow doubt, confusion, and control. They spin stories of heartbreak and longing, or worse, cast themselves as the forsaken victim, the one left shattered by a love they claim was never returned. It's never about remorse. It's all a carefully staged act, performed for the eyes and ears of everyone around you. Their mission is clear, to shape how the world sees you, filtered through their twisted narrative. If they can't hold you close, they'll settle for controlling your reputation, weaving their name into yours like a tangled web. This isn't mere fixation. It's a deliberate branding effort. They want your name to carry the story they've fabricated, not the reality you lived. With false tales of reunions, doctored messages, and warped memories, they rewrite history and insert themselves into your present. Though they can't reach you directly, they're convinced they can manipulate the space you move through, bending perception to suit their desperate script. Unable to invade your mind, they settle for contaminating the space around you.
Yet what they fail to grasp is that you've already stepped beyond their reach. No matter how many whispers they spread or how many false stories they weave, their efforts fall flat against the fortress you've built. Your spirit is shielded, your boundaries radiant and unbreakable. Their noise may echo in the air, but your energy stands firm, unyielding, sovereign, and utterly untouchable.
Their desperation is the thread that unravels their own facade. Every fabricated tale, every calculated message, every planted falsehood exposes more of their cracks than it ever could of your character. Those who truly see you remain unwavering, untouched by their deception. And those who fall for it were never meant to share your path anyway. While they believe they're shaping opinions, in truth, they're only cementing the reason why your quiet retreat was the strongest response of all. Every secret maneuver they make only reinforces the truth you long held. They never acted with sincerity or honor. Stripped of control, they descend into a frenzy of deception, masquerading as sorrow. They may attempt to tarnish your reputation, but your reality remains untouchable. They might try to rewrite your story, but your spirit remains intact, untethered by their lies. You exist beyond their grasp, and that is the bitter truth they'll never come to terms with. This wasn't random turmoil or senseless suffering. It was a sacred initiation crafted to break you open and reveal your true power. What appeared as collapse was actually a rise in disguise. You weren't thrown into this storm to be broken down. You were summoned to rise up, to reclaim the parts of yourself hidden beneath the noise. Every wound, every deception, every challenge was guided by a greater force, pulling you away from a script that never belonged to you and guiding you toward your authentic throne. You carried the weight for years, the scapegoat, the endless giver, the silent guardian of peace, swallowing blame like breath. Conditioned by pain, shaped by survival, molded by expectations to over-explain and minimize yourself. You bore the chaos of others as if it were your own. Then they arrived, the final reckoning, the relentless storm that demanded you stand fully in your truth without compromise or apology. They came draped in seductive lies and twisted charm, not to destroy, but to unmask. This wasn't just a toxic link. It was a spiritual trial, a fierce flame meant to incinerate your false self. You weren't merely caught in their madness. You were their mirror, reflecting back your own clarity. Through their distortion, you reclaimed your intuition. Through their hunger, you drew your boundaries sharp and unyielding. You shed the weight of guilt, silenced the voices that questioned your truth, and stopped watering down your power to ease their discomfort. You stepped into your essence, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. You started saying no, not just to them, but to every shadow they cast. Chaos, codependency, illusion, control. You shattered the cycle. You didn't just leave, you transformed.